Welcome to a special presentation version of Ark Rex Temple of Ages. A special April edition. Alright, hello everybody. Hope you're doing good wherever you are in all this weirdness and chaos of the world. And we're all brought here once again to the few watching, and I want to say thank you once again for those that watch and comment. And I have a very special presentation here that I hope finds you as soon as possible. And weirdly enough, as much as I've ever made a presentation, I hope this one's wrong. And this is how it makes me feel. So I hope you join us. And like I always say, this meme just seems to be coming true by the day. And I just find it so ironic that it's like, James, you're making another special video that's like another series on top of a series, when you already made the 13 series, and that was a series in a series, and like you just keep doing it. And yes, this one's very time sensitive, and like the last 2 or 3 days especially, it just blows my mind, like the synchronicities and all of that, and just how time sensitive this is. Because if any of this is going to happen, it's going to be really short term, which is why I want to get it out to anyone out there. And to anyone listening for the first time, I just want to say, I'm going to say a whole bunch of weird stuff that has no context, and you can go back and listen to others if you want. And if not, just, have an open mind. And we'll try to have some fun in, like I said, all the chaos of 2026. And it's kind of funny because I've updated this meme later on in the video because, like, even this isn't fully, relevant anymore. And just all the weird delays in life that even as all this is happening, there's all these weird delays. And it seems like every time I figure out what's going on or get used to something, it just immediately changes into something else. And it's kind of all looped together. And just how much of this seems to be coming true, and all the things that we've been talking about are finally up on the stage in the light, ready to go. And, this meme about frogs and all that, and just like how blaring in my life it's been. And I'll give a couple examples later, but just like how, I'd say haunting in a way. Just, I can't really avoid it. So I'm trying to get more fully on board. And, like this meme of not feeling fear in the face of all of this because, I'm just human in my own ways as well. Yet the whole idea of this channel and all this goofiness is to move forward to a better future. And like this Titanic metaphor that I always go over of finding our way through this weird AI burning circus tent of a system and get past the programming and the technology and all the zombies in our society, and going through the chaos and finding our own path and forming a community together instead of going along with all this evil and chaos. And our journey along with that and the memes we make. And this was something I found recently, that the inflation got to the pickles, and that this is just going to keep happening. And this is the biggest reason why I started doing what I'm doing, and why I just ordered a bunch of food on Amazon and spices, because I want to lock in my prices. Because also just going forward, that preparedness stacks with almost everything. So almost any problem, that if you're preparing, that it covers almost all of them as you go through it. And that it gives you a better standard of living. And if you, for instance, buy a bunch of food, that the government can't really mess with that, really. I mean, yeah, maybe if they crash through the roof, but I mean, who are they really doing that to? They don't really do that. And that this beats inflation. Like, if you don't like the fact that these pickles had inflation, you imagine if you just bought a whole bunch of pickles right before that. And now you're locked in, and maybe you have months or years worth of those pickles, and now you don't have to deal with this anymore. And that's the whole idea of this channel. If we go back to the Titanic metaphor, you don't have to deal with all the chaos and the negativity and the sharks. And on the right there, the cheese grater, just shaving every part of our life away. And not that I'm saying it can be completely stopped, but we also have our own choice in the matter and what we can do together to make a better future. And standard of living, because that's a part of the future. And the Tim Dillon show once again reverberates in my life And he was saying, so we've lost. There's nowhere to go. It's checkmate. We can't do the things we think we can. And that's the whole idea of our society breaking down bit by bit, is that we lose the power to do anything. We lose buying power. We lose the ability to go to the store and, get things. As the supply chain breaks, our freedom of choice goes away. And, that goes on and on and on. And exploring that idea, it seems like we're going into the perfect storm. That from every angle, all these problems are becoming more prevalent all at the same time. And it really sucks to be on that boat, but imagine if someone knew they had been going into that storm before they had gone and had made like a special room. So, even as, if you imagined you were in the story of the perfect storm, that everyone's freaking out, you're like, oh, time for a lunch break. And you go down to your little special room and, where you have all your stuff prepared. And your standard of living, your journey in this story becomes a lot different than what it was before. And that just trying to ignore everything isn't the answer here. And if we're here to grow spiritually and become adults and grow up, then ignoring the elephant in the room isn't the right way forward, in my opinion. And also, if your head's in the sand, you can't help anybody. So, which is also a big part of this channel right here. And there was somebody that I know personally that made a post the last few days. And this part right here that said, I had a coworker tell me we're in a bad timeline. Of course, I corrected him in saying my timeline is the best and greatest timeline there has ever been. Not going to curse my timeline at all. And here for the highest possible mission achievements. And it just, if we're going back to like the perfect storm metaphor right here, imagine someone's like drowning from the waves and going, hey, this really sucks. And going, hey, no, buddy, this is my best timeline. You better shut up. Like, you better quiet that down, because I'm abundance. I'm here for the highest achievements. And it's like, all right, what'd you do? Do you have any food? It's like, no. I didn't get any extra because I was mental abundance. I don't want to crap on him too hard, but just the whole core of this channel is that we could actually have material abundance to help people in this crazy time, but yet everyone wants to either be up in the clouds or stuck on the ground, because I don't think the people with their heads in the clouds are going to be materially prepared, and I don't think the people that have their feet on the ground that aren't seeing the bigger picture are going to be prepared in the right way. So it's just kind of a, I think the solution's in the middle, but I found that both sides don't want to talk to each other. That everyone's still just shutting each other off and ghosting each other. And just asking, what timeline are we on? Are we on the bestest ultimate timeline of achievements? Does that seem what's going on here? I want you to ask yourself. Like a portal we've gone through. It's like, where have we landed? And I broke my arm in 3 places, and the doctor says, well, don't go to those places. That's kind of what I was saying to earlier. Just talking it away doesn't just magically make it better. That I think both are a part of the solution, but so many people just want to stick to one or the other. And just this question of like, where do you think we are? What do you think's happening? What's down the timeline? What's on the stage that's about to happen? And come into your bubble and be a part of your story as well. And, because it's the two becoming one. It's the light and the dark all joining together in this ultimate story. Yet I don't think a lot of people are really ready for what that entails. Yet it's the elephant in the room we've all been talking about. I think everyone here anyway. For basically our entire lifetimes, the what ifs that have slowly been coming to light and together and moving, step by step. But so many people want to ignore and say, what problem? Or just go back into their old habits. Like these people are trying to all go back to their job and talk about all their fancy metrics and statistics and their retirement. And they're going to go home and they're going to eat pasta and talk to their child. And you know what? That elephant's there. To say, buddy, no, it's elephanting time right now. And, you know, if one of those guys was ready for the elephant time, then, you know, it's like he won the lottery. You know, if he was adequately prepared, because all the bullshit goes away. But if you're clinging to the bullshit of what this society is and trying to ignore, you know, the rising temperature in the pot of frogs, or the two becoming one, you know, all these spiritual and metaphysical things, all the pre-programming, and, you know, so many of these spiritual people I talk to want to go back to source, want to go back to the spiritual area, but this is also a part of it because the evil is also in the spiritual area as well. And that, in my opinion, everything we're sweeping under the rug is going to come to light anyway. And that's what this channel is for, is preparing for the, I don't want to say consequences because it's more of a negative thing, but the implications of this dust that we tried to sweep under the rug. And, you know, if this rug is our subconscious and, you know, everything we're trying to ignore outside of our bubble, you know, what's going to happen? And, you know, as a precursor, I hope I'm pretty much wrong about all of this in a way. Part of me kind of wants to just hide in Babylon, or at least to have it go a lot slower and smoother and be more kumbaya and happy fun time. Yet, you know, imagine you're on a cruise ship, right? And you just want the cruise ship to be nice and happy, and, you know, to go to the buffet, and then you're going to go to the music show and hang out with your friends. But you notice the snow in the air, the ship rocking more than it should be, the screams that you didn't recognize because of the music in the background, and you look over and you see that the boat says Titanic on the side, and that there's all this ice in the water. Are you just supposed to go back to what you were doing? And if I'm wrong, I hope I am, and I would ask that you please correct me on all of this, and, you know, our journey and the implications of all this. Because I'm not sure if anyone's actually ever tried. It's all very interesting. And it's just interesting because I want to also talk about the relationship of the boots on the ground, the human meat suit, and the higher consciousness, or the script of reality playing out, and how they coalesce, and kind of the flavor of our journey. You know, if this was a channel on a TV, what channel is this? And this is one of the things haunting me synchronistically, because Dune's about seeing through space and time and choosing the best timeline. And this right here, she's saying it's our secret weapon, a worm-human hybrid, and it's a Breaking Bad meme. And it just makes me think of, like, that's our reality. Like, you have this original source script material that's all serious. And, you know, serious is also about the two becoming one. And you just make it this joke. Which is amazing if you're not in the joke, if you're not on the stage, if you're not suffering the consequences of the chaos of that joke. And asking yourself what to do about that on the way forward, especially like I was talking about with the micro and the macro versions of yourself, and how that's all playing out, and how it's good to be served tea, yet what if you are the tea being served? What if you are the entertainment instead of the entertainment you have been consuming, like all of us? Like, I'm making this on a laptop where I've consumed so much, yet if you just spun a wheel and, like, you landed in any movie that you had watched or show or thing like that, like, it might not be so great. And this is a YouTube channel I like watching because I used to do a lot of fishing. It's kind of in my blood, I would say. But this guy right here, he has this big bucket of shad, which to us, you know, you don't really understand the horrors of it, you know, if the shoe was on the other foot. And right here he's saying, like, hey, we'll make you a movie star. Yet would you want to be this movie star if you were one of these shad? And that's what I'm starting to say, that our bubble of being the apex predator and having no predators and us getting to choose the entertainment, I feel, is at a kind of an end. And that the real show's about to begin. And here's another one because, weed's in my life. And once again, with Star Wars, the chosen one, Anakin, who's supposed to balance the Force and choose the best timeline and be able to weave reality itself, but he ends up not doing it. And how that's also very similar to the Samurai Jack story, and how the views, which I'd say like half of these are probably me on this video, because I've been listening to it for months, and just, the interaction with the shadows and learning the human condition. And like I said, it's at 667 views. Like, I gave it a 666 views. So, just understanding the darkness as well as the light moving forward, as gnarly as that might seem. And not being too critical of ourselves in the moment right now of trying to define how the story's going to end and who's doomed already or not, because I don't really know. All I know is this is how it makes me feel. I've talked about meme warfare before, but this is a channel on the internet that talks about all the memes coming out and how there's a meme warfare going on right now between Iran and the U.S., and just how that keeps happening, but how I think so much of the truth of what's happening is in this, because the memes, I think, are telling the most truth. Because there's these Lego AI videos that have been coming out from Iran, and I would say they're some of the most unfiltered mainstream truth you can have. It's totally propaganda as well, but just, that doesn't mean it's all propaganda, or that doesn't even mean propaganda's a lie. It just means it's trying to make you think something, or get a response out of you through information. And that all of our people steering the Titanic or the cruise ship we're on don't seem to be the best guys. Really not the best people at all that you wouldn't want to leave around your children, and that basically are sending us all into a meat grinder that they make money from. And that's also why there's a cheese grater on the Titanic metaphor I keep talking about on the meme I made, because all that cheese grater goes to them. Because, in the chaos, if you lose your house or your investments, or even like your house, like, they get the land afterwards. They can, if they just walk out of their bunkers and all of that, they can just reset everything and go, oh, no, you don't own that. I have a robot. Oh, well. But back to this, the meme saying, they listen to our songs instead, since your media is full of shit. So they're even acknowledging it, because these memes, these AI videos are very fourth wall breaking, and once again calling them evil. And they're saying retribution is coming with a storm you can't tame, and take it seriously. And back to the serious idea, and the two becoming one. That this right here is a special detail in all of this that really gets me and has what's got me going. And this one little detail right here is shaping the course of my life right now, especially over the last few days, and what I'm going to do the next week especially. And I'll go more into that moving on, before it's too late, because if it does happen, once it does happen, then there's nowhere else, you just have to react. It's like a wave hitting a ship. That you can't go, oh, we'll brace for the wave, we'll get some extra this and that, it won't be that bad, but no, and, you can't go do it all of a sudden because, everything's in chaos. And they're talking about LA specifically, and I'm not even worried about the bombs themselves, or that, and he's saying right here, don't say I didn't warn you, karmically, and, I hope they're wrong, I really do. But I've had all these the amount of times, we'll get back to it. I thought I had it in here, but the main reason I have a problem with these is the EMP afterwards, is that they can shut down and disable electronic devices all over the country with just a few explosions, based upon the mainstream story. And that can happen naturally even, but it can be done by man, as far as I know. And that the amount of times the last 2 or 3 days that I've tried to brush this off my shoulder and be like, it's just synchronicity trying to get me to feel fear, you never know. And or when I'm thinking about and the lights start dimming weirdly, I just had a light bulb just go out yesterday, weirdly dimming at the weirdest times while it was doing it. And just, I've had a lot of those like the last few weeks especially, but even because I'm basically asking like life, like, hey, can you let me know if this is like really important? I should be really paying attention to this for this time frame, because it's an interesting thing that if I can get this time frame and prepare, I don't really have to worry about this too much more. Because I prepared for it. I can move on to other things, and that's the whole idea. I don't have to sit here in fear hoping things don't happen. Especially, if you're listening to the vibration and synchronicities of life. Because so far, they've seemed pretty on point. But not completely, because like I said, because the biggest part is I don't know what's going to happen next. That's the craziest part. I don't know. And that's where the fear is, in not knowing. Yet that's the inverse, because if you can prepare, you can get rid of that fear, because even if it did happen, you have a game plan, you have actions, you have steps, you have a standard of living, you have a plan, you have all these things that take, time to do, and you can't really do after the event itself. And it's if I can do all these things, it's going to massively help with my fear, because it's almost been giving me panic attacks, if I'm being honest. I have to really kind of be careful about it, because it's kind of on the back burner, and just my mind trying to do the logistics of it, and trying to choose that path forward. Because like I said, EMPs are a very special thing on the preparedness scale, because like 2 or 3 days before I started really getting these messages, I was thinking to myself, because I basically, the last few weeks, I pulled myself up by my bootstraps, I like that joke, by a lot, and I've grown my preparedness by a whole level that I have been waffling on for years, and I would say it's brought me to, like, in a lot of ways, mid-level preparedness. And life basically within a day or two was like, hey, I know that's awesome and you feel good about that and all, and I see you're kind of letting off the gas a little bit. What if I gave you a high level preparedness like EMP? Because EMP messes, because even if you had food, you have a house, you have security, EMPs send you back to the Stone Age. Most people, unless you're like the Amish or like you're in sub-Saharan Africa. And what's funny, too, is I'm just talking about parts of America here. That's all I'm talking about. It's just some electronics dying in a lot of America. That's just what I'm talking about here. But how much that throws the average person back into the Stone Age if there isn't immediate solutions and help on a massive scale. And everyone hates us right now and is going through their own energy crisis on the level they've hardly ever seen. And just how this alone right here has the potential to send the parts of the world back to Mad Max. Just almost, within a few weeks. And I don't see the leadership stepping in to save anybody. Like, if it's the cruise ship metaphor, I don't think the captains or the puppets captains on the cruise ship are coming to help anybody. And that if the EMP happens and most of the ship gets turned off, if you can imagine that, like after a few weeks, like, it's not going to be fun. It's not going to be sanitary. And there's a huge other part of this while I'm listening to this, and that has been the astrology synchronicities. And that the reason I have as many subscribers as I do is because of Livette. And on top I have Livette's videos, and on the bottom I have my videos. And I'm making a point here that basically I disappeared for 3 months. She disappeared for weeks on end. And basically she came back for a day, uploaded a video, 2 videos, and then came back 4 or 5 days later. And I basically did the same thing, that I took a 3-month break off, then within 24 hours of me posting a video, she posted 2, and then within 24 hours of me posting another one, after 3 months, she posted 2 more. So it's just weirdly synchronistic. That's how I'm looking at it, just metaphorically. And that the biggest thing fueling this for me is this interesting channel. I don't have it on here. If anyone wants the name, it starts with Hugh. Like, if you want to watch this, just ask me and I'll link it to you. Or tell you the channel name, because I didn't put it here. I don't want to steal credit. It's just I didn't get it in the crop. that if you type in IPET Go 2 Hugh, like HUGH, you'll probably find it. Or just the title right here, like the title's right there. You can just pop that in, you should find it. That he makes these videos off of IPET GOAT Part 2, which is massively considered pre-programming and synchronistic, and he links that to astrology, and he's been pretty good at it. He predicted the Iran conflict happening about a week or two before it happened because of this still right here. If you can see the 28 I circled, in the explosion over him there's fireworks, and there's a 28 in it, and he kind of highlights it, and that's why he predicted it, was in this slide, and he actually got that one. And I've been kind of watching the channel ever since then, and he's gotten a lot of them, and he hasn't gotten all of them, so that's kind of why I'm back in the boat of I don't really know what's going to happen. Yet he's been right before, so we have that, and just moving up, like I said, there's all these I'm not going to try the word anymore, but astrological lessons. And like I said, most people are here from the Levet, so that's probably a language or something you're very familiar with. And that the big focus has been that this person's really worried after the 15th and the moon leaves Pisces. And that later on he has this one that on April 23rd, like there's these giant robot tanks. Maybe the president and his son, something weird's going to happen to them. Aircraft carriers are going to go down. There's going to be a big thing in Iran. A possible civil war. He was saying a plane crashing. Tsunamis. A giant shark. Sharknado. Oh, that's my joke. A possible invasion. And right here an EMP. All of those kind of put together, all within a few days. And also, just going back to Levet really quick that I was going to say earlier, she recently made a video that after, basically right here and what they're talking about, after the 15th or 16th, that this next week is just prime for some big stuff. And that's basically what this guy's saying right here is like all of the big stuff. And he ends his video, he doesn't usually do this, with what I think is him. Kind of like looking at everybody. And I think it's kind of like that fourth wall breaking, like what I'm going to kind of do at the end of this video. And, I bet he hopes he's wrong too about this. Yet the information that's led him here, has seemed to be correct enough so far to warrant talking about it and spreading it to people. And I've talked a lot about whales. It's one of the biggest natural synchronicities that popped up in my life, I'd say organically, and that just keeps happening. And this is right where I live, in that there was this gray whale that came up a river and died, and just how out of whack. And that the idea of the whale is a lot like Dune earlier. I was talking about the sandworm and seeing through reality and like the dream of reality, because they have the biggest brains. So if anyone's dreaming of reality, it's them. And that's going a wary. And that not only that there was this giant squid filmed basically up at the surface in Japan, which is, also just, it's basically as weird as a random whale swimming up a river and dying, which, doesn't really happen. Same with this. And just how those are both linked, and how I've kind of linked the idea of Cthulhu, because he's like dreaming of reality itself. So the tentacle symbolism of dreaming reality, but you have the other side, the light and the dark, all in duality, and different levels of the dream, and, which side of the yin and yang circle is balanced or not. And that, like I said, goes back to like Star Wars and the Chosen One and all of that. And also like dolphin hybrids that are planning to take over the world. There's a lot of weird synchronicities with intelligent, aquatic mammals and tentacle monsters. And, I always like just putting in my weird conspiracies about that. And like I said, I made a new version of this tornado, and this is all just like this week into the end of April. Of all these things, and even like fourth wall breaking memes and synchronicities. And it's just like, it just kind of gives you that face, just like, what? Yeah, this one right here, like, oh. But, you know, it's faith building. It's character building. It's soul building. It's an incredible story we're writing. And as much as I don't want to do it, I'm doing my part. As weird and as, you know, useless it might seem in the moment, that, you know, this is the time when it's darkest before the light. And that I do think there's light beyond this. I don't think this is just a storm where we all just go in and get crushed. Yet, I feel like if you're not respecting it, that might be a possibility, and not that's the end of the world. It's just, I think one of the biggest things about our journey here is the story we write, and that burying your head in the sand isn't a very good narrative plot. But that's just me. So, this next week, you know, before the 23rd, I may or may not be buying trash cans and putting a bunch of aluminum foil around boxes to protect valuable electronics that I may or may not have been buying lately, like the battery, you know, the $2,500 battery and solar panels I was talking about the other video that I bought. Because, you know, if I just have those sitting in the corner and the EMP does happen, that's just a $2,500 paperweight I just bought that was supposed to be a salvation to my living standards through all this chaos. And hey, I can solve that by putting like 3 to 5 layers of aluminum foil and special tape around it. So I may or may not be wrapping all these things and, you know, going on a last-ditch Amazon spree to see what I can get before the 23rd. And, you know, that'll be an interesting, because I need to do all this. It's the money to do this is being held by my father, who has fought me every step of the way and for 7 years about this money. And it's just now in the last week or two that I've actually been able to get it, because things have been so chaotic and I can present it so logically that I basically have to say, like, hey, I kind of want to use the rest in the next 5 days, and putting some of it in trash cans lined with foil. Because preparedness, and it actually is preparedness, because thinking, you know, if I'm climbing the mountain of preparedness, and that's a moral thing to do, and I might be wrong about that, I'm learning, I'm wrong about things, we're all going to figure this out, you know, it's a test of life, that if I'm doing that it doesn't make sense for me to stop halfway. That if I'm looking at this whole thing from a top above view down, that it'd make total sense that, hey, James is on this path of preparedness, he's been getting ready for all this, he's had all this inadvertent training for all of this his whole entire life. It seems like he's at the perfect moment. The synchronicities are just the craziest they've ever been in my life right now. And the only thing stopping me is ignoring all these things and being afraid of what people think of me for basically playing the lottery and putting it in a trash can or wrapping it up like Christmas and hoping it never happens. Which, by the way, I'm filling these things which I'm going to use or be able to sell at a profit later anyway. So I'm just buying food I'm going to eat anyway. And now, you know, a lot of it's better quality than I could have even bought at the store. I have a couple spice mixes that blow the water out of anything I could have bought at the store for the price. And, you know, just, I'll live like a king. Still, even if the lights go out, you know, even if the sky is falling. Because that's what preparedness can do. And that's what I want to share with others. And if you're listening, you too have a little window of any of this happening. And you can take steps to help your own life. And also reach out to me if you want advice, because I'll give it to you for free. Like I said, I really hope I'm wrong about this. And in my book, it's win-win. Because I guess the only downside is I might have a couple extra metal trash cans after this that I might not use, but the upside is I just protected all my things against EMPs, and now I might have walkie-talkies, flashlights, solar power, heated cooking surfaces, blenders. I'm probably going to get a shower, something for heating water for a shower, you know, things like that. And I'm buying like merino wool clothing that you can wear for days that doesn't get smelly and you can hand wash it. Things like that will last me. And I'm not even saying, I'll get to back to that point, but just that I'm buying things I was going to use anyway. at a price that even if EMP doesn't happen, that with gas prices, that inflation is going to make everything more expensive anyway. So if I buy it now, it just is actually gaining value. And if there are certain items like batteries or food that have long shelf lives, those are actively gaining money through any inflation. So at all levels, I'm feeling like, and this is also helping me sleep at night. Like, it's actually helping me feel better, because even if the sky did fall, I can go, back to what I was doing a little bit. And, I don't want to hide in that, but, my journey doesn't seem to be over here yet. So, and just how important the standard of living and the quality of life is, especially when you might find yourself on the Titanic. That if you're on the Titanic and, you saw that someone had this full room and they're just sitting there sipping coffee and about to make dinner, and you're like, what? Everyone's running around with chicken with their heads cut off and stuff's exploding, and they're like, oh yeah, Susie's got soccer tomorrow with her friends. Because that's what that level of preparedness can do. And I'm not saying it'll solve for everything, but just that it seems kind of a waste of opportunity not to try, because I think we're capable of it. And that it's just fear holding us back, and unknowns, and fear of the unknown. And that, like I said, you can take steps this. You don't have to go out and completely change your life. Maybe just go buy, a couple extra things at the store before the 23rd that you'd want to have anyway, and that you can get before they get more expensive anyway. Win-win. Now, this is not the end. It's not even the end of the beginning of the end, but it is perhaps the end of the beginning. And that, I don't think this is the end. I don't think everyone's going to die from this. It's just a massive shift in the standard of living and what we're used to, and the flow that has been our journey thus far. Like, if it was a cruise ship, now we're entering new waters that are a lot different than what they were. And what happens if the shoe changing the foot, and how that's going to look in our lives moving forward, and how fourth wall breaking it is. And that I'm just feeling more and more like it's showtime. And that, like in The Mask, that against overwhelming evil, that good gets goofy superpowers as well. And maybe not. We'll see. That's the fun of it, right? Like, of not knowing what's going to happen. And just the story between the lower and the higher self, and just the journey that we're all a part of, and where it's going to go, and what kind of story we're all going to paint together. And how that's like in the Men in Black with the little marbles at the end, that everything, the universe is all just fractally within each other, and that this is always just happening. And this is about all of us, including you, including me, and everything. And that this might kind of be the end of an era. And that if you felt fear about any of these things, that maybe use that as fuel to really enjoy the moment. I've been trying to really do that. Really pet that dog like it might not be around that much longer. Maybe talk to those family members you haven't talked to. Now you still have the moment and the time and the freedom to do a lot of what you want. So I would say to do that, and at the very least just enjoy the moments. Like, they could, be near the end. And, not the end, but just, mainly of the story of America and the way it's been so far. And the American dream. And that it's been an honor. Farewell, but not goodbye. And I hope this isn't, because if it is an EMP, we're not going to be watching these videos anymore, and it's probably going to get my laptop. And even if I did have my laptop, probably not servers to post on, because, my Wi-Fi chip doesn't go that far, and I don't have satellite. So, and I'm going to be very busy the next few days. I doubt I'm going to have time to make another video, and I hope that I'm wrong, but that I've enjoyed this journey so far and the people that have been here, and just where this is going to go. And I hope, I think we'll all meet on the other side with a good story to tell. So, wherever you are, day or night, I want to say thank you. And that hopefully this isn't the end of this journey, but the idea of preparedness is that you prepare for the worst and you live for the best, and that if you do prepare, then you don't really have to worry about it as much because you've already prepared and thought about it. And then, all you have to do is act it out within the best of your ability. Hopefully with friends around you and a better standard of living and faith to carry us all through the story that the higher selves have written us all into. So, to all the dualistic meat bodies out there, wherever you are, day or night, I want to say thank you for joining me on this journey of memes and weirdness and chaos and happiness. And until next time, peace!